Hey boys and girls, welcome back. I got a different pattern here for you today, something that I need to fill my box with here. This what we have here is Lance Egan's Poacher in black and brown, and essentially what it is a sculpin pattern. If you can see that profile from the back here, this is actually the bottom of the fly. This is going to swim this way, and we want that as flat as we can on the back, because that's how it's going to be, riding along on the bottom of the stream. I used to fish almost exclusively streamers and things like that before I got into urine nymphing, and some dry fly stuff occasionally, but this is the type of pattern that I always used to tie. Woolly buggers. Essentially, that's what this is. This one's a little bit more specific because it's a sculpin pattern, and we're trying to imitate that a little bit more realistically. So, with the water the way it has been, around here locally, the streams are just blown out constantly, and I've never replaced all of the woolly buggers that I lose. So I've gotten to that point to where I need to start tying some more. And, as I was looking through, I kind of wanted to look at something that was more of a Euro style, something, with a bigger bead on the front, and, just a way that we can fish it a little bit better. And what we have here on the front, this is a fulling mill silver bead. That's a tungsten. It's a 3.8 millimeter. The hook we're using is a jig hook, size 12 by Orvis. This is P2A is their number. And for the tail that we have here, rabbit zonkers. This is black. And if you're going out to purchase this, I haven't bought this type of material, these rabbit zonkers, for a long time, but I didn't have any black that was left, so I had to go buy some. And when I went into the store, they had something that I was a little bit unfamiliar with. This is called crosscut, okay, as opposed to regular cut. Don't get the crosscut if you're going to be tying this type of a bug. Essentially, what they're doing, if you can see this, all of the fibers are heading down the rabbit zonker in the same direction. Okay, a crosscut is they're cutting it this way, so the fibers aren't going to flow the same way as a regular cut. So make sure you pay attention to that. We have a little bit of crystal flash here for the underbelly, and I bought this specifically for this pattern. This is an Arizona fishing company. It's specific dubbing that this guy makes. His name's John Romer, and this is called Arizona Semi-Seal. And the fibers are much coarser than typical dubbing that you're going to find. So the other advantage is they're very long, and that's kind of the type of dubbing that you want for this pattern. And we'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I tried to use some of this, Senso's laser dub that I have in my packet or in my box. And you can see that if you stretch this out, it does get pretty long, but it is soft. It's not near as coarse as the semi-seal. So tied a couple up like this, and it definitely looks better. Whether it fishes better, I don't know. It's a streamer. So the reason I wanted to go with this was just because the water's been so blown out. Right now the Loyal Hannah is probably close to 5 feet, and it's just a death trap. You can't even get close. So with the waters fluctuating that much, I wanted to put some of these in my bag. Some of the other things that we're using here, besides that, some type of soft tackle. Doesn't really matter what. This is a Brahma hen by Whiting. It's in a March brown color, and it works, you know, for what I want. It's just a profile that we're trying to create here on the underside. You know, we want this head to be as wide as possible and then taper back to the tail. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this, and it's a pretty easy tie. I mean, it's basically a woolly bugger. A couple different things with it though. So here's the jig hook. Oh, I also put some lead on this just to make it a little bit extra heavy. This is a 3.8 millimeter bead, which is definitely going to get down, but we want this pattern on or near the bottom to where, you know, you're jigging it just little hops, not necessarily jigging it like you would a bass, lure, you know, or worm or something like that, to where you're getting a lot of vertical type thing. I would just keep that a little bit shorter because you want to take advantage of the way that the pattern is set up. So I did these beforehand, put the beads on it, put about, you know, 8 or 10 wraps of lead on it, secured it into the bead with some super glue, just so that we don't have to waste time doing all that. So the thread I'm using is just black nano silk. I try to build up a little bit of a ramp here. We're going to fill most of this in, you know, with that rabbit zonker. Oops. Okay, so when I cut these, obviously there is a direction to the fibers. You don't want to tie them in this way because then, you know, everything's going to be standing up. So make sure you have that direction. And when you tie this tail in, we'll call this the top of the bug, okay? You want to tie it in upside down, okay, with the leather strip facing up. And we're going to put that on there. When you put this kind of thing on the hook, make sure that it's on there square. Before you cinch it down, okay? When we wrap that, we're just pulling those fibers back. We don't want any of them to be involved in that hook gap. And you also want to make sure that you're going down around the bend a little bit, okay? That prevents the hook, or that prevents the zonker from fouling that hook. It can still happen, but less of a chance. Just a good habit to get into. And we're gonna cover all this lead up. Try to create a little bit of a consistent body. Okay. Now get your crystal flash. Oop, just fell out of there. Half a dozen strands or so. Just pick them out. Doesn't have to be pretty. Actually, you don't want it to be pretty. You want it to just kind of be everywhere. Sculpins. If you ever caught a sculpin and looked at it, the belly has, you know, a bit of pearlescence to it. And yeah, we want a little bit of that. Not necessarily the length of the tail, but kind of where the belly is there. I tie that on right where that lead stops, and I'm gonna tie that back a little bit and then fold this back and go over top of it. Same way that the tail is put on there, okay? You want it a little bit down into the bend, just to keep it from fouling that hook. And then you can trim these. I would tell you to trim a couple at a time just to make different lengths. Now, get your dubbing. I put this on using a split thread technique, okay? You can use, excuse my noise, like a dubbing spinner, okay, with a dubbing loop, but I don't know, I feel like I got a little bit better control, you know, when I do a split thread. So we're gonna do that, split that thread, and make a big loop in there. Now I pull these out in little bunches like this. All we're gonna do is just try to keep that length on both sides. All I'm doing is just sticking this through that loop. Working that up a little bit. The idea, oh, I lost my thread, crap. You want all of that length in there. We're gonna spin this up. Okay, you can see what this looks like. It's just a rat's nest. That's right. I got a new bobbin. I really haven't had a chance to use the function of this. This is one of those Evo bobbins. To where the bottom spins, if you can see that. All right, we got that big dubbing rope in there like this. Get your brush, and I'll just kind of tease that out just by touching it with the Velcro. You don't want to brush it too much because you know, those fibers are you don't want them bunched up. Okay, now we're just gonna wrap this around. Doesn't have to be pretty. You're gonna brush all this stuff back. You can bring those back if you want. You can see what a mess this is. That's kind of the idea with these extra long fibers. And we're just building a body. Leave a little bit of room up front there. You don't want to go the whole way up to the bead. Brush those fibers back if you want. Okay. Now, I'm going to tie this off. And get your brush. Turn this upside down. We're trying to brush all of these fibers towards the top. Get everything even and on the sides. It is a mess. That's the idea. We're gonna clean it up. Okay, try to get everything pulled down. Get everything down there like that, okay? Essentially, that's what we're gonna fish with. I'm just kidding. The taper on sculpin is very abrupt. The head is very wide, and then it will taper back down. And what we're trying to do with these longer fibers is help create or help that situation. So pull them down. And you can see the length of the body here. We want to cut this at a very sharp angle Okay, save this dubbing, we're gonna need it. And we got this type of an effect, okay? So when we pull this back over, we'll spread these out to the sides now, so that we can start to create the head of this pattern. Okay, see what we got? Much wider at the head here, and then it'll taper back to the body. Okay, that's the look we want. So to help that, we're gonna get our soft tackle. Okay, doesn't really matter what color. If you want to make it all black, make it, you know, rainbow. Okay, but something to pay attention to. We want the longest fibers that on this bug. Okay, we're only going to wrap this once or twice on there, so these little fibers that are at the tip, we can get rid of. Okay, just like you would normally do that. Pull all these fibers back, so we just have that split there, kind of where the fibers start to get small. And we're gonna cut that off. Just make a little triangle there. I'm gonna put that right behind a bead and tie that in. Okay. And you want that curve to go towards the back of the hook. What I mean is the curve of the feather. Okay. We're gonna hang that. And I'm gonna use my rotary vise so I can try to guide this in here without twisting. You can pull these fibers back if you want. Okay, that looks pretty good. Tie that off, pull these fibers back. All right, now we're gonna clip this stem off. You can kind of see what we're trying to do here now. Really secure that in there. All right, so get your dubbing that you cut off from a couple minutes ago. We're gonna twist this onto the thread. You don't need a lot. But what we're going to do is put this in front of this soft tackle to try to force it back even more. Okay, and that's it. Now we got to do all of our cleanup. Okay, now as far as the tail goes, I cut these off in like 2-inch sections, but you can trim these however you want for length. This is a size 12 hook, so this is a pretty long. I might take it down to, you know, maybe an inch beyond the hook bend. When you do that, make sure that you're gonna split these hairs before you cut, okay? That way you're gonna have hair beyond the end of that where the leather is, okay? Now, sculpins are flat on the bottom, and that's kind of what we're gonna do next here. We're gonna separate out this soft tackle that's right on the top. Okay. Get all of that separated. And we're gonna cut it off. I don't like to cut these completely short. I like there to be some fuzzies on the top here. But if we do that, this is the bottom of the fish. So that's why we want that to be. Now these, the soft tackle is not really going to affect that hook point at all, okay? But we do want this to be as wide as possible. Granted, you put this in the water, water is going to force these fibers back, but by adding, you know, a little bit stiffer fiber here in our dubbing, we're adding a little bit of soft tackle here to create, you know, some contrast and some stiffness so that the soft tackle won't compress completely against the body. And then we're putting a little collar in front of that to force everything to flare a touch. And that's the idea. This would be the bottom of the sculpin. A little bit of pearlescent type thing in there for the belly. And then on the top of the bug, you know, just make sure your hook is clear. The water's gonna push all this back. All right, guys, there you go. Lance Egan's Poacher in black and brown. Time and olive, time and tan, whatever you want. But I would recommend looking into this Arizona. I'm really impressed with that. You know, how much different that looks than, you know, the other ones that I've had. This is one, that one's too long. No, I don't have another example. That's all I got. All right, guys. Lance Egan's Poacher. Ice them up, use them in heavy water, deep pools. You can really put some fish in the net. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again in a week or so.